Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is good to have you all. It is good to be with you again. No long intro video. We're going to get straight into it. I was very grateful to have Dr. Jerry Gladson on last night. Hopefully you got some perspective on some additional research and scholarship as far as the perspective is concerned. I figured we would go straight into episode 10. It's been a hot minute, and so I'd like to get straight into it and welcome you all. Welcome, friends, maybe even some enemies, maybe some people that may disagree, and that's fine. Welcome. This is going to be another deep dive, a little bit different. This is kind of the halfway point, so a little bit different than maybe how we've done it in the past. We are going to watch a short clip in just a second, but this clip, I need to be very transparent about the clip. It's two sections because this particular kind of rebuttal, is tied to several different places, and I didn't really want to put 5, 6, 7, 8 different clips in, but you'll get the idea in the clip that we watch. Okay, so I do want everyone to know that this has been spliced together. Not taking it out of context. You're welcome to always watch the full video that's in the description of the YouTube Live. So welcome. This is going to be a deep dive. Welcome. I'm Mike Colburn. I'm your friend. I'm from the Thinking Cup. And today we're going to tackle one of the more, I don't know, maybe a contentious part of the debate in the Daniel studies. And again, we have been refuting a 38 minute video from ADL. By the way, I have to say, since we're interpreting things, okay, I've decided that I guess it's all fair and games. Okay, so ADL normally stands for Advent Defense League. I think I'm going to change it. I think ADL is always defending law. I think that's what it is. That's my interpretation anyways. You can take it for what you like. All right, so we're going to deal with this. This is going to be a little bit of eschatological thinking, especially in the framework of the Adventist position. And I have to say, this is not a new debate. Many of the debates have been going on for quite some time, for centuries. And it continues to divide scholars. But I want to be very clear on something as we get into this. The claim that's made, this is derived, again, remember, this is derived from the Adventist position. And as Jerry Gladson pointed out yesterday, and we discussed, Daniel is pivotal, especially Daniel 8. And we're going to be in the latter part of Daniel 8 today, actually verses 26, 27. But Daniel 8 is the most important chapter for several of the Adventist doctrines, investigative judgment specifically. And so this is all of these rebuttals and debates about kind of the Advent Defense League position. Remember, it is the Adventist position that they are defending. So here's, let's do this. Let's watch the video. Grab something to drink. Oh, I wanted to also mention, since you'll see me normally drinking coffee, which, by the way, the logo on this coffee here is my wife and I's business. So if you want to know more about the mountain, that's not the mountain of Zion that's on that cup. But if you want to know, reach out, let us know. I have to mention this. This is not a sponsored thing, but I've got some incredible coffee from a friend. Actually, this was from a friend that was a part of a church, a Methodist church, when I was recently out of college, and I was the pianist for the First Methodist Church down in McDonough, Georgia. And there was a family down there at the time that we actually went to a marriage retreat with them and several other couples, fabulous family, and they actually started since then. They started a coffee shop and a roastery for coffee. Check them out online. It's called Queen Bee, I believe, Queen Bee Coffee. And check this out, okay? If you don't know anything about coffee, well, you're not going to know what this means. But right here, this is a geisha. As soon as I open this up, now the notes on this is a direct, farmer direct, rare coffee, incredibly smooth. And when I opened this up, it smelled like blueberries. Oh my word. It was incredible. Okay. And they were so kind to me that they decided to send me another one for free. I haven't had this yet, but this is the Sudan Rume. And apparently this one is better than the other one. So at any rate, I'm always drinking coffee. I don't feel like we can do good biblical exegesis without it. You want to know why? Because coffee is in the Bible. You know why coffee's in the Bible? Because it's in Hebrews. Sorry, but guys, this is going to be a fun one today. Hey, let's kick it off with the video. Okay, let's kick it off. Here we go.
Evening and the morning, which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days.
Many days.
You kind of get the sense that this vision would not be understood for a long time. It is very clear that this was at the time of the end. To go to the interpretation of the vision, right? It says, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days. In the original language, that doesn't say days. What it says is evenings and mornings. I think there's some translations that says for 2,300 evenings and mornings, then shall the sanctuary be restored to its rightful state. 2,300 evenings and mornings. So the vision is called the evening and morning, right? When we go down to verse 26, what does the verse say? The vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true.
It's true. Yeah.
But when the vision is being explained, where does the vision begin? The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia.
Yeah.
It's the whole vision that is fitting within the 2,300 days, not just the portion about the sanctuary being destroyed. It's the whole vision that is being referred to. The vision starts with the Medes and the Persians.
Okay. Now, I'm hoping that you're seeing some of the potential issues. I wanted you to hear, okay, this is going to deal with Gabriel's sealing up, okay, the whole vision, many days. It was really difficult for me to compile because this particular claim is kind of spread out in the 38-minute video. And so, again, I always try to steel man the position, okay? And I want to make sure that I'm representing Jason's position properly. So I believe that what he's claiming, not just in this short clip, but in the larger video as well, is that because Gabriel tells Daniel, specifically in Daniel 8, 26 and 27, we're going to focus on 26, because Gabriel tells Daniel to seal up the vision, for it pertains to many days, okay, that we're going to talk about the sealing in the many days, okay, that because of that, the prophecy must concern a distant and end time, in his position, an eschaton, the end of days. I'm not sure how that works with the 1844, because 1844 it wasn't the end of days, nor did a temple get trampled. And again, there's lots of issues there. Okay. But the steel man is that the prophecy cannot concern a very close time. It has to be a distant time. And by doing that, ADL claims through Jason that this removes the Maccabean period. It cannot be. In fact, he is explicit. It cannot be Antiochus Epiphanes. He makes that demanding statement, okay, which I believe is horribly misappropriating the text itself. He goes on. So here's kind of the additional perspective. If the events occurred only 4 centuries after Daniel's lifetime, why 4 centuries? Because that's the Antiochene period, okay? Then the command to seal it up, and we're going to talk about what that means, that command would be meaningless in Jason's perspective. And because of that, the fulfillment of this prophecy must be appropriated to a much later time period. And that much later time period is commonly interpreted as being the Roman era, or again, it's going to be a much longer 1844. It's going to be an extension of 2,300 years rather than 400 for the Adventist perspective. Okay. All right. So that's we're going to tackle specifically today in the educating Jason. I'm going to educate him a little bit on the seal up and the many days, because those two areas become very important when we dialogue on this particular section. Now, the issue at hand, very specifically, the issue at hand centers around one single verse. And as I discussed with Jerry Gladson, just as a reminder, okay, if we go back up to this verse here, which is the most important section, okay, the most important section verse for the Adventist position. In fact, the investigative judgment hinges on this one verse. I know that's a bold claim, but if this verse is not understood the way the Adventist position understands it, you cannot, it is impossible to interpret the investigative judgment. I know that's a bold claim. Prove me elsewise. That is all I would have to say. So as we move down to the end of the chapter, which again, Gabriel kind of explains the meaning, and we're going to get to this, where the angel instructs Daniel in this section right here to seal up specifically, okay? And I've got the Hebrew here. If we need to move into an interlinear, we can do that so you can see the actual words that we're referring to. When we say we're dealing with the Hebrew language in this channel, when you come to the thinking cup, okay, when we say the original language or the Hebrew language or the Aramaic or the Greek, I'm going to take you to the actual language. I'm not going to take you to an English Bible like a New Living Translation, which is predominantly what Jason went to when he wanted to favor a specific way of reading it in English. We're going to deal with the Hebrew. We're going to deal with the Aramaic if we happen to be in the previous chapters, okay? So we're in verse 26, and at first glance, when it says, but he shall be broken and not by hands, we're not going to cover that. The vision of the evening and mornings that has been told is true. We'll come back to this word here, true, in just a second, eret. As for you, seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. Now, at first glance, okay, this seems maybe fairly straightforward, okay, but it has become the linchpin, one of the major significant interpretive arguments for Jason's position, and of course the Adventist position, specifically the Adventist church. Okay, and when I refer to Jason, I want to be very clear here. I have been accused of attacking people. I'm not attacking Jason. I am dealing with the perspective and interpretation that Jason holds And Jason, as part of the ADL, Advent Defense League, is supposedly properly supporting and defending the Adventist, the Seventh-day Adventist position. So I'm not in the practice of doing ad hominem attacks. I have no concern to address any specific person. I want to go to the actual arguments, and I want to see what actually can be defensible and what isn't. Okay. Now, the traditional reasoning for this position goes something like this. If Gabriel told Daniel to seal up the vision because it concerns many days, if that's the case, okay, then surely this particular prophecy must refer to events in the distant future. That's the assumption, perhaps even the Roman era, or even our own end times eschaton, the period that we're in. After all, the argument continues, okay, this is the perspective. After all, if these events were fulfilled, merely during these 4 centuries after Daniel's time, during the Antiochus Epiphanes crisis, which is kind of the 2nd century era, okay, from the 6th century to the 2nd century, why would Gabriel, after all, have instructed Daniel to seal up the vision at all? Now, this argument actually came up multiple times in the live chat of the interview with Dr. Jerry Gladson yesterday. Multiple Adventists made this kind of this parroted statement, which isn't a normal Adventist. This is a Adventist response. Okay, I mean, wouldn't 400 years be too short of a time to warrant such a dramatic language? I mean, he faints after all. Like, that's the argument. Like, he becomes sick. I mean, that's got to be a long time period. Now, that's an interpretation. Okay. We're going to see if that interpretation actually is supported by the text, because that's what we're after, is we're trying to extract what the text actually means and what the text can support. Now, that type of reasoning has been used to argue against, at least since Adventism has been around, and specifically recently, has been argued against this Antiochene interpretation. The view that Daniel's visions find their primary, not necessarily all, but their primary fulfillment in the immediate persecution under Antiochus Epiphanes IV in his reign, in the 160s kind of BCE era. Okay. But I want to suggest to you today that this particular argument, this way of dealing with this Adventist interpretation, while it might seem compelling, it might be, and a lot of times it's really easy to promote this as a way of like dismissing the current view on the table. Oh, no, there's no way. I mean, look, he faints, and there's no way that this could be that short of a time period. You're totally missing the context. It's kind of used in a way of dismissing, okay? But here's where I'm going to pick on this argument. This fundamentally, and this should not surprise you because I've made this argument time and time and time again inside of Jason's arguments. This fundamentally misunderstands both the Hebrew text, the actual Hebrew text, as well as the literary function of sealing. What does it mean in ancient Near Eastern context and in biblical context for something to be sealed? Okay. You might think today it's, licking an envelope or locking a door, or, you might have a perspective of it, but your perspective right now, today, your modern understanding and modern lens is there's no possible way that could be what Daniel saw and understood, because he has a different framework, a different understanding, a different view, a different perspective. And so we're going to go through that today. We're going to talk through it. And to properly evaluate Jason's claim here, we need to address two critical questions that I think get to the heart of biblical interpretation. So here's the first kind of question, okay? And I would ask you, if you're watching this either live or at a different time, I would ask you to take these two questions and wrestle with them, engage with them. Don't just let your normal tradition, your normal view, what your pastor's told you, what Joe Bob next door has told you, whatever it might be, okay? Deal with the question itself, okay? And here's the question. What does the Hebrew phrase underneath seal up, okay? What does that Hebrew phrase for seal up? What does it mean in the ancient context, in its context itself, okay? The phrase here is satam ha, okay? So what does it mean to seal up? And yes, after that is hazan, but what does it mean in the Hebrew context to seal something up? Now, the second question that I want you to deal with, and we're going to deal with, is how should we understand the temporal, that just means time, the temporal reference for many days. Okay, when it says many days or for many days in English, what does the actual Hebrew, what does the temporal time reference mean? Specifically, what does it mean within the broader framework of the Hebrew scriptures? But first of all, what does it mean inside of Daniel's literature? And then what does it mean in the broader perspective of the Hebrew scriptures, the Tanakh? Specifically, what does it mean in the literary setting, which is the apocalyptic genre of Daniel? Okay, so those are the two things that we want to deal with and address. And so as we begin this examination, let's look at the Hebrew text itself. Okay, let's just look at the Hebrew text. Let's go to, here we go. Let's go to the Hebrew, and I'm going to put on the screen the Hebrew language. Okay, and if you don't know Hebrew, totally fine. Let me explain what the transliteration on the screen is. Okay, you'll see the surface text here where it says seal, seal up. You'll see that. Let's go back to the beginning of the verse. Now, I've said this multiple times, but I want the audience to understand how to read what it is that you have on your screen, okay? Starting in verse 26, you'll see in the second line that says MSS, that's the manuscript. That's the text as it reads in the manuscript. And you'll see numbers next to it, okay? The numbers are the order in which it reads on the line in the actual manuscript. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, let me go back to verse 26 right here, okay? You'll see, and again, this is just a moment of education so that you all know. You'll see here the word the vision. This is the same New Revised Living Translation. I want you to notice this little in green, okay? And then this word across here, and it reads right to left. This is the very first word in the line, and that matches this word right here with this being the second word, reading right to left, okay? Here's another way of looking at it. Let me do it this way, okay? Reading right to left. Let's go to verse 25 real quick 26. Okay. You'll see verse 20. Where did it go? Verse 26. Oh, I had it. Sorry, friends. All right. 25, 6. Where is it? There it is. All right. So verse 26. I want you to notice this first character here, you, okay, is the first character here. You'll notice the word that reads right to left. This is mara. Okay. You'll notice that word here. As we move to the third one, you'll see this third character, which is ha. That's an article. And then you have areb. Okay. The vision of the evenings, areb, habachor. Now, ha-areb, you'll see as you read across, this fourth one is combined. It's actually one word. It's combined 3 and 4. You'll see 5 and 6 coming across here. Now, all these are in order, which is really nice. Okay. When we get to the sealed up, okay, sealed up, I want you to notice that sometimes, let's look at true here. Sometimes this is the beginning of the next line. We have true, but notice that is the 11th. Okay. So notice that you're reading. I want you to notice that when translators translate into English, they're taking the original Hebrew, and sometimes they have to put words in ways in English to have it make sense. That's why sometimes there's an out of order in the reverse interlinear at the bottom of the screen. Okay. Again, just want you to understand what we're doing when we're dealing with the text. As for you, seal up. Now this is, seal up is a satam hazon. Seal up the vision. Okay. That's what we're looking at, is seal up the vision. All right, let's get another. Let's do this. Let's not make it too confusing here as we go through. All right, so the way this reads, okay, is, let me put this back on the main screen, verse 26. So we have the vision of the evening and the mornings that has been told is true. As for you, seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. If you were to look at a literal translation, when I say literal, okay, understand that sometimes, let me go back. I'm going to explain this so that you guys get some clarity on this, okay? Sometimes when you're reading through the, again, apologize here, verse, okay. Sometimes in interpretation, you'll see here these arrows, okay, has been told. Has been told is added because it's to further explain what this ne'emar means, okay? It's a verb. It's to tell, has been. It's a past tense. It's actually a verb in the third person with the nephal stem. Singular sense. So sometimes a translator will add words in English because it's necessary to get the meaning of the Hebrew word across. And translators do that in multiple different ways. Now, another thing I want to point out is sometimes you will have words added that are explicitly absent in the text. Okay. Here in this one, you'll see the surface word for, man, I just lost where I was at, without hands. That's in the previous text up here in verse 25. Let's see. By his holy, without hands. I want to get to the without hands is cut. Here's a good example where you get he shall be deceit. He shall make deceits prosper under his hand. You'll notice an omission here, this dot. Okay. This dot means that there is no Hebrew word in between 13 and 14 for the word own. Okay, that's added. That doesn't mean it's bad. It's just a process of helping to communicate what the Hebrew language means to an English speaker. All right, so if you were to, by the way, okay, I'm just going to say this real quick. This kind of stuff on the channel, okay, Robert Baker, just so you know, you're just going to get banned. That's what's going to happen, okay? Because this is ad hominem attacks where we're studying scripture, okay? And I just have to stop here and point it out. It's not going to be allowed. You're going to be banned, okay? And you're not welcome here if this is the way you're going to treat people, okay? So you've been banned. Thank you for being here. All right, so let's get back to the discussion. The literal translation of this text, Daniel 8:26, the literal translation would go something like this. This is kind of my own translation, okay? The vision of the evening morning that was told is true. You, however, seal up the vision, for it refers to many days to come. That would be kind of a way of understanding this text. Now, the key here, okay, as we're going through this, the key here is the word for satam, not satan, satam. Okay, let me get the word here on the screen that we're going to look at. It is the word for translated seal. This satam, or to shut up, okay, we're going to talk about what that means. It comes from the root word hatam. Now, when someone says root word, I'm going to be very transparent. I'm going to go back to my Adventist days for just a second. I've heard multiple sermons as an Adventist where a preacher or a teacher or an elder would make a root word fallacy, where they would just state this comes from, okay, like for instance, this word for, I forget, for dynamite comes from, this particular word, and it means like it's kind of comes from this idea that it blows up, okay? That is a common, yes, very, very true. This is a common root word fallacy. So when I say it comes from the root hatam, I'm not making an etymology statement where it necessarily takes the same or takes on or takes kind of the flavor of the root word. I'm just making a language statement to give you an idea of where it sits in the semantic range. Okay. Now, what it means, okay, what the word satam kind of the sense, it means it has this seal sense, but it's not seal as in like the way we would commonly understand seal. It means to secure a document is what it means. Okay. But here's where the understanding becomes really crucial, because I don't want us to make the erroneous assumption that the word seal here in English means the same thing that it did back in the ancient Near Eastern context. And so when we dive into the ancient world, sealing didn't mean like licking a document and sealing it and then no one can open it. That's not what it could mean that, but that's not the only meaning, and context drives meaning. So sealing a document served two primary functions in the ancient Near East. The first primary function, and this is so important, friends, okay? The primary function of sealing was to authenticate the document. It means to bear authority and to protect it from tampering. So, okay, guys, today's going to be one of those days, okay? Again, another one of these statements. I'm going to put you in timeout, okay? We're just not going to deal with this junk here. I'm going to put you in timeout, okay? Like a little child. And if you come back and keep doing it, I'll just ban you. Okay. Because I just don't have time for this kind of junk. Okay. Deal with the arguments. Okay. That's what I'm going to say. Deal with the arguments. Don't do ad hominem attacks. Okay. I'm addressing a very specific argument that Jason from ADL did. I'm not addressing Jason specifically, meaning I'm not attacking who he is, his ethnicity, his intelligence, I'm dealing with the actual issues. Okay. I don't know how many times I'm gonna have to do this. Maybe this is the day that I'm just gonna ban a bunch of people. Like, that's okay. Okay. Because if you act like a kid, you're gonna get treated like a kid. So sayonara. Okay. I'm just not feeling it today. I just don't have time for it, friends. You want to be here and you want to engage in the text, great. If you want to ask questions, great. If you want to learn, great. If you want to disagree, great. That's okay. Disagree with me, but don't attack people's intelligence. Don't attack who they are. The ad hominem stuff has got to stop. Okay. It's just not productive. All right. So remember, the primary reason, the first reason is to authenticate the document. The second function is to preserve the document, which means to keep it secure until the proper time for disclosure. It doesn't mean to keep it forever, okay? But it means to secure it. So authentication and securing it for the right time or for a specific action. Okay. Now, notice that neither of these functions necessarily implies concealing information or keeping it secret. Okay. This Gnostic idea that like, oh, it's going to be secret until this later time, which is the view. Okay. Hiding truth. Like, you won't understand. He's so confused. He doesn't get it. Daniel faints because he just can't figure it out. Like, those types of arguments, neither of the primary functions of the term for seal, okay, satam, has anything to do with that. In its original language, it has nothing to do with that, okay? So this understanding and these two truths about the Hebrew language becomes even clearer when we examine how the concept itself, the concept of sealing, is used elsewhere, which this is a great lesson in good biblical hermeneutics. It is unwise to study one verse out of its book context, the verses around it, the book itself. If the author has authored other books, it's good to study within the author's literature, okay? But also looking at the outside, the rest of the Hebrew language or the rest of the Greek language, looking at the context and seeing how the word gets used. Now, I don't want you to think that just because it's used a certain way in other places, that's necessarily the exact way it's used. We wouldn't do this today in language, right? If I use the word run, I run to the store. You all know, okay? Well, maybe you know. I don't necessarily know. If I say I run to the store, without giving you context, you might think that could mean I literally got my tennis shoes on and I ran down to the store. I ran, okay? But it could very well mean that, I jumped in my vehicle and I went to the store, okay? Now, if I gave you one additional word for context, just one, okay? If I said I ran to the store, and I'll use another sentence, but the word is keys. If I said I ran to the store, but I forgot my keys, okay? Now, while that may not make a whole lot of sense, okay, it helps you to provide some context to maybe he's, okay, or I ran to the store, I left my keys in the car. Now okay, without a doubt, that I went to the store in my vehicle. I didn't tell you what the vehicle was, okay, but a vehicle that required keys, and I left those keys in the vehicle. Context drives the meaning of the word. Now, if I said, okay, instead of run to the store, if I said, I think I'm going to run for president. By the way, I'm not. I would never do that, okay? You know immediately, because of the word president, you know immediately, friends, what the word run means. I don't have to say anything else. You know that it's a campaign. You know that, okay? Now, one other thing. If I say I want to run for president and I'm speaking to someone, let's say, in a different country that also has a president position in their government system, you do understand that that can get confused by him thinking or her thinking that the process to become president is the same as the way it is in America. And that's just not the case, okay? This is the way language communicates something, and we have to keep it in context. We cannot impose our modern understanding on the text, or we will most certainly abuse the text. A text, and this is a famous quote by Michael Heiser, a text without a context is just a pretext. You can do anything you want with it. And I see this happen all the time. It happened in this particular argument with Jason. You cannot take an English word and just run off to the races with it and claim it is what it is. You can't do, well, you can if you want to abuse the text. Okay. So let's go. Let's just go real quick. Let's put it back on the screen. We're going to go to Isaiah. That was a little bit of a soapbox. Actually, wasn't in my notes. So Holy Spirit must have been directing on that, telling me to say it. By the way, that doesn't mean I'm like some sort of inspired or something. Please don't misunderstand me. Isaiah 8:16 says this. It says, bind up the testimony, seal the teaching among my disciples. Now, this word for seal is hatam. Okay, so let's go back to Daniel 8 real quick. Okay, this is satam. Now, it comes from the same semantic range. Now, this is not the identical word. Okay, and it's important that you understand that. This is not the identical word, but it gets translated as seal. And the reason why I'm showing this is because someone could easily go, oh, look, seal here, seal there. Oh, it means the same thing. Maybe it doesn't. Context drives everything. Okay. Now, in this context of this passage, okay, sealing, notice, bind up the testimony, seal the testimony among my disciples. I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hope in him. And it goes on, okay? Sealing clearly refers to preservation for faithful transmission. It's seal it up among the disciples. That's what's happening. It doesn't mean bind it up so that no one can understand it, only you. It's not Gnostic information. It doesn't mean hiding truth, okay, from those who need to hear, but they can't. The prophet Isaiah is instructed to secure his message so that it can be properly translated or transmitted, given, and understood when the appropriate time arrives. It's sealed. It's not sealed indefinitely. It's not sealed till the eschaton. Okay, none of that. Okay, it's not hidden truth. It's not Gnostic truth. Okay, it just simply means secure it so that when the right time comes, you'll be able to understand what it is and how important it is. Now, just an aside here for just a second, even though I just got done with an aside. Guys, the blueberry in this is incredibly strong. I absolutely love any coffee with blueberry notes. Okay. Anyways, I want you to remember, okay, as we've said before, context drives the meaning. So we would need, and the reason why I say that, we would need evidence in Daniel 8 and the surrounding text, probably the book itself, but most importantly in Daniel 8, because 8 is tied with 6. And again, we would need evidence in its surrounding parts in order for me to concede that the text is claiming the seal up text part is a way of preventing people from understanding until 1844 or until, well, that's a specific Adventist position, okay? You would have to provide the evidence. And this is a call to Jason, call to ADL. If you're going to refute this, you've got to provide original language in its context, in Daniel 8, in Daniel itself, that the word being used in Daniel 8:26 for seal, let me get it on the screen just so that they know when they're watching and they're trying to do a rebuttal, okay? This satam, that contextually, that Hebrew word means to prevent people from understanding what it is, or prevent Daniel and those listening to understand it until the 1844, which is the end of the 2300 years in the Adventist position. Okay? That's the only way I'm going to concede on this point. If you can't provide that, then your argument is erroneous. Okay? Your argument is refuted and it does not stand. Now, when we apply this particular understanding that I'm sharing, that I'm bringing to the text, okay, the Hebrew text, what it's saying, when you apply this understanding to Daniel 8:26, this concept of it's not this Gnostic seal it up, you're not going to understand. It's securing, it's authentication, and it's preservation until the right time. Okay, Gabriel's command here, it takes on a very different meaning than the one that Jason posits, than the one he shares with us, than the one that he thinks is clearly, I mean, that's what he says, okay? Clearly it's can't be Antiochus Epiphanes, is what Jason says on the ADL channel. Now, that's erroneous, okay? Especially with regards to this position. The perspective, the traditional interpretation that Jason brings up is unsubstantiated, okay? And I would say rather than conceal, okay, I'm using this, conceal this vision, that's the way they would understand it. Rather than conceal this vision for millennia because it's about the distant eschaton, okay, that's kind of the argument. What I really don't understand about the inconsistency of the Adventist position is they'll say it's for the end of time, but then they will attach it to 1844. Well, 1844, there is no end of time. That's not the end of time. Like, we've been in the end of time since Jesus ascended. Okay, the apostles talk about being in the end of time. So we always have been since Jesus ascended in this end time, okay? Okay, so in my opinion, a better way of understanding this instruction would be something like this. The angel Gabriel is saying to Daniel, preserve and guard this revealed message. Keep it intact until its appointed moment arrives. Do that. Seal, that's what it means to seal. It's authenticated as divine from God, but I want you to preserve and guard this message until the right time, until the appointed time. In other words, Gabriel is essentially telling Daniel to keep this revelation secure and authentic because it comes from divine origin. That's part of the reason why, if you listen to the live stream last night, based on Dr. Gladson's position, that more than likely that's why Gabriel comes in, because Gabriel is a high position, which means it comes with high authority. So keep this revelation secure. It's authentic because of its divine origin, because Gabriel's giving it to you, similar to like what we see on Gabriel declaring that Jesus, the Messiah, has come in the form of the baby incarnate. And keep it because it pertains to future days that are still centuries away from the current time. It's not immediate, but it pertains to future days, historic days, in context to Daniel's time frame, the 6th to the 2nd century. Now, this brings up our second critical question. Remember, I told you we were going to ask 2 critical questions. So the second critical question is, what does the phrase "for many days" actually signify with regards to the Hebrew biblical language? Not with regards to English. What does it mean with regards to the Hebrew biblical literature? And in order to examine, this particular thing, we're not going to just look at a single instance, but we're going to look at a broader pattern. Again, this is going to tie into the Hebrew idiom concept, which happens a lot. I mentioned it with run. Run is kind of an idiom in the English language where you know what it means, okay? Another kind of figure of speech that you would know what it means in English would be "it's raining cats and dogs." Okay, you wouldn't need to go to the etymology of the what is dog and what's the root and what's cat and what does rain mean, and oh yeah, no. The actual meaning is that there were physical dogs and cats falling out of the sky. No. Okay, Hebrew idioms were understood in Hebrew. And most of us are not Hebrew experts, let alone do we have any connection to the Jewish culture. So we got to be very careful and very specific. And we got to oftentimes rely on academic scholars that spend their time doing this kind of stuff. Okay, don't be afraid of that. All right, so in Daniel itself, we find several instances of this, what we call time or temporal expression. Okay. Let me go to, for instance, let me go to Daniel 10. Let's go to Daniel 10:14, for example. Okay. We're looking for temporal or time related instances in the corpus of Daniel. And so here we have, but the prince of the king of Persia has opposed me. This is actually maybe a future video with regards to Michael the archangel. I'm not going to get into that today. One of the chief priests, by the way, just a side note, I always get on rabbit trails when I talk about this stuff. Michael, just as a side note, go study it. Michael is one of the chief princes. He is not the chief priest. He is one of them. One. Okay. So just take that for what it is and add to the conversation when you're doing the study. I have come to help you with regards to temporal. I've come to help you understand what is happening to your people. Now, here we go. At the end of days. Now, is this the end of the world? No, we know this is not a reference to the end of the world. We know that. Okay. For there is a further vision for those days. So this expression here for latter days or for those days, depending on the language that you're looking at, very clearly means in context, it can't be the eschaton. It can't be like future to even our time right now. Okay, the second coming of Jesus, because this related to, well, what? related to the fighting in the kingdom of Persia. And again, if you go through and kind of understand, this was a battle between, and okay, we know that. Okay. So in context, we know that end of days does not necessitate an interpretation that means eschaton. That means the end of the world, Armageddon. Okay. Let's go to Daniel 11:13. Here we have, as a side note, okay, here we have the term that's, well, let me read it. For the king of the north shall reign again, a multitude larger than the former, and after some years, okay, now I want you to notice, okay, this is going to further refute the 2300 evening mornings, but I want you to notice, without you being a Hebrew expert, okay, the Hebrew language has a very clear way of stating years. Okay, it's not like it's a word that particular term is not present in the language. There are some of those things in the Hebrew language, okay, which makes it difficult. But this is hatam sanam or sanim, okay? And this word sanim, year or Israelite year, okay? We're very clear that this cannot be, it just can't be the end of the world, okay? It mentions that the vision is still for many days, okay? So we know that in context, you can have years and it doesn't mean like forever into the future. And I know I'm being very specific on this, but I want you to understand in the corpus of Daniel, the concept of end of days is very specific. It's very specific relating to the apocalyptic nature of the corpus itself, the literary structure, okay? In Daniel 11:13, the same Hebrew idiom here is used to refer to after some years, okay? Not like a millennia in the future, but after some years. It's the same idiom that's used, which notes a finite time period, what scholars would call a temporal gap, a finite temporal gap, not in indefinite time or not this is the eschaton time, okay? Now, that's just a few inside of the corpus of Daniel. I would encourage you to do your own study and look outside of Daniel. You can go to passages like Jeremiah 32:14, for example. This is a very similar pattern, okay? Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, take these deeds, both this sealed deed and purchase, there's that sealed deed, okay? Similar meaning, similar semantic domain, it's not identical. And this open deed, and put them in an earthenware jar in order that they may last for, there's that concept, a long period of time. Now, what's really interesting about Jeremiah, okay, it's comparable language. What's very interesting is that this uses comparable language to refer to a considerable time later. And notice that it uses this idea of keeping or preserving a deed, a document, one that is authenticated and one that is opened, a certificate that has already been revealed. So notice the context of the verse. Now, that's a little bit different than Ezekiel 38 verse 8. Ezekiel 38 verse 8 speaks of after many days. There it is again. Now, I have to say, okay, this is just a picking on the Adventist position, okay, not on Jason, but on the Adventist position, that if you're going to argue days for years, which has been done, which was talked about in the previous live stream and previous episodes of this rebuttal. If you're going to argue for that, why do you not take some of these others as years? Why do you just rip it out and go, well, this one's days, but these aren't? You've got to be consistent. And I would argue the consistency is going to lie in the textual meaning tells you if you take a day for a year. The two passages that Adventists usually reference, which is, I think, Numbers and Ezekiel, another passage in Ezekiel, those very clearly deal with days representing or symbolically connecting to years. Daniel 8 does not. There's absolutely zero place in the text that would tell you to interpret it with a day for a year. It's just not present, and it's erroneous to do so. It's an abuse of Scripture. Now, notice in the text, after many days you shall be mustered. In the latter days you shall go against the land restored from war, the land where people were gathered from many nations. Now, is this latter days represented by the eschaton? The answer is no, by the way. Okay. It's many days. It's related to later when the land's going to be restored from war. Like, very clearly the context, again, context drives the meaning, friends. It's a consistent pattern. When you look at this and you understand in context across all of these texts, that many days, many years, latter years, this phraseology, okay, it denotes relative remoteness. A considerable time later does not mean 1844. It does not mean post 1844. It does not mean, I don't know, 2000. What is it going to be? 2,500, 2,500, 2,400? Like, what? It doesn't mean that. You've got to stop being so egregious to the text. It does not imply some sort of timeless eschatology. Stop abusing the text, Jason. Please stop. Now, let's put this into a historical perspective. If we place, and again, I've kind of alluded to this before. I promise, friends, I will be doing at some point after the new year, I will be doing an entire episode on the authorship of Daniel as well as the dating of Daniel. Okay, I will be doing that. It'll be a long one. It'll be a deep one. It'll be an academic one. I hope you enjoy the ride. If you want to support the ministry on this and you want to help support my deep dive into this, I would encourage you guys to go to the Patreon account. This is a shameless plug. Okay. Please do me a favor, if you don't mind. Please just go to the Patreon account that's on the screen and at least become a free member. Okay. At least become a free member, because what will happen is you will get notified when articles. I just posted a new article yesterday, I believe, that's free to any member. You don't have to be a paid member. There will be some articles that will be specific for paid members. That's a way for you to continue to support the ministry. Would love to have you do that. What support does that provide? Well, it provides ongoing access to some of the resources. It provides the ability to source and manage the website. It provides resources for my academic career. So please do think about supporting if that's something that you want to do. At minimum, just subscribe to the free membership. Okay, at minimum, so that you get a at least notified when some of these additional articles come out, because my video and my resources on the authorship and dating of Daniel will absolutely be something. Some of it may actually be private to the community. So and by the way, just scan the QR code, please. Actually, it's up there because it's reversed. Scan the QR code, please. Scan it so you have my contact info. Scan it so that you have the Discord channel access. Join the Discord channel, friends. If you're an Adventist here, Jason, if you're here, Edwin, if you're here, join the channel. Okay. We welcome you. If you are an Adventist that wants to debate, okay, we have a dedicated channel where that is what you do. Okay. That's it. That's the only thing that's available to you. Obviously, when you join, we will ask you, if you're an Adventist, kind of what your intention is, and then we'll kind of decide what the best place is. But please join the Discord channel. That's where all the communication, that's where all the further engagement, academic conversation, all that. So please join. Don't be afraid. It's not like Facebook. It's not like anything else. So please join. All right. So let's place this in the historical perspective for a second. If we place Daniel in the Babylonian context, which I believe is where it needs to be, and that's suggested by the text, the Babylonian context would be where it references the 3rd year of Belshazzar, which would be roughly around 550 BCE. If we place him there and consider the relative situation, the Antiochus Epiphanes persecution that actually was a thing during that time frame, okay, that occurred roughly between 175 and 164 BC, we're looking at approximately 380 to 390 years, approximately, okay? Just depending on the dating and when you do this, that, whatever. There's really no exactness for much of this. And that was one thing that was brought out with Dr. Gladson as well. It's relatively a misnomer, okay, if you think that things like this have to be exact and precise. They just aren't. So from Daniel's 6th century vantage point, 4 centuries was indeed many days. It absolutely was. It was an egregious amount of time. It was a long time. That is, I mean, friends, think about this. 400 years, roughly 400 years from now. Okay. However old you are, if America was being persecuted, or your country that you're in currently was being persecuted religiously, 400 years would be an absorbent amount of time. That is a very long time. Okay. And it's very reasonable to see that from that vantage point, to see why that would be the understand. Now to put this in perspective, okay, I want you to consider, just for a second, consider the language in the vantage point of Ezekiel 38:8, okay, because it uses the exact same language. After many days you shall be mustered. In the latter years you shall go against a land restored from war, a land where people were gathered from many nations on the mountains of Israel, which had long lain waste. Its people were brought out from the nations and now are living in safety, all of them. Now, this is centuries in the future from Ezekiel's perspective, yet clearly within historical time. Very clearly, right? In fact, Ezekiel is saying there is going to be an end time. It's not like it's still going on. And again, the reason why I'm saying that is because the latter years doesn't dictate that this has been going on forever. Hebrew language, scripture is very consistent in how it uses this type of language to indicate very specific temporal distance, time frames, without, this is important, without implying eschatology or eschatological postponement till the absolute end of the world, till Armageddon, till the end of history. That's not, okay, again, understand that the Hebrew language has a way of dictating a temporal time, a designated appointed time, and it's for that time. It's very clear in the language, friends. Don't be misguided by the Adventist position on this. But here's the question. Here's another follow-up question. Why would Gabriel instruct Daniel to seal up the vision if its fulfillment was only 4 centuries away? Why would he do that? And to me, this particular question, which is a common question, I heard it in the chat yesterday. This is a common, like, ooh, I got you question. The question itself, to me, reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of the composition, the genre, the literary context of apocalyptic literature. When someone asks a question like that, I immediately know that you have never read any other apocalyptic literature around the same time as Daniel. You've never read any of the other apocalypse. You've never. I know it, okay? Because you don't understand the full context of this genre and how it engages in the language, okay? Consider the situation of Daniel's immediate audience. Jews were living in Babylonian exile, 6th century, as I already mentioned before. The Jewish people at this time could not possibly comprehend the Greek cultural world that would emerge centuries later. Please understand this. The Babylonian context in which they're currently at, there is no way for them to understand a culture that they have no knowledge of that's going to emerge centuries later with its Hellenistic philosophy, gymnasium culture, okay, the stadium culture, and also the particular forms of religious persecution that would happen. So the vision of Daniel 8, with its detailed, please follow the logic here. The detailed descriptions that we find in Daniel 8 of Greek political dynamics, and specifically Antiochene, okay, Antiochus Epiphanes IV, Antiochene religious oppression would have been virtually meaningless to a 6th century Jewish exile. It's hundreds of years removed. Hundreds. It would be like go 200 to 300 years prior to the Holocaust and make these distinctions and claims about what's going to happen to the Jewish people. They would have no context. They would not understand. Okay? Now, the vision itself, the vision needed to be sealed. Remember the context of that language. It needed to be sealed. That is, it needs to be preserved and authenticated until the future generation arose. Again, until this time period when the Antiochene persecution would happen, and they would desperately need the encouragement that it will end. It will ultimately end. They would be able to recognize. It would make sense. They would understand the situation that was described by Daniel's prophecy. It's analogous to a sealed letter written at an earlier time, delivered at a later time. Okay, it's written maybe today. I keep it here, preserved, but it's not delivered for decades later to a recipient, but it's describing the recipient's own contemporary situation in advance. That's what's going on in this section. Slow down and understand the implications here. So this represents deferred comprehension, not postponement in fulfillment. It most certainly doesn't represent the egregious interpretation of 1844. That is so horribly out of context and misguided. Now, the perspective that I'm suggesting, that I'm presenting to you as a possible understanding, I think is further understood and supported when we examine similar patterns in other apocalyptic literature. Notice what we've been at this passage before, okay, just because I'm going to keep it in the biblical text. We've been in Isaiah 8 before. We've read it already, okay? But notice the context. It clearly refers to preservation for a coming time. A coming historical period of time. It does not deal with eschatological postponement. And if you go back to Daniel 12:4, Daniel 9, okay, with Daniel 12:4, let's go back to that real quick. Okay, Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, keep the words secret. Friends, this is the exact same words, satam. It's identical. It doesn't mean Gnostic. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean cryptic. It doesn't mean no one's going to understand it until 1844. That is foolish, friends. That is foolish. So Daniel 12:4, Daniel 9, it's the same thing. Seal the words until the time of the end. What does it say? Keep the words preserved and authenticated. Keep it sealed. These are both the same words that get referenced. Until when? Until the appointed time, until the designated time. It's indefinite. There is an end point, but it is indefinite. We don't know when exactly. How do we know exactly? Because it's told in the description of the vision. 2300 evening, mornings, not days converted to years. Please stop being so egregious to the text. Now, what is significant, okay, what's really interesting about this is if we do go to other apocalyptic literature. Now, this is New Testament, okay? So, again, it's a long time removed from what we just looked at, okay? But if you look at chapter 22, verse 10, and he said to me, do not seal up. Okay, now this concept here is the Greek version of what we just looked at. Okay, it's the Greek version. I'm not going to go, okay, I'm not going to do this because, there's nothing wrong with it per se, okay? Don't be so quick to go to the Septuagint as a means to authenticate exactly what you think is right. Okay. And the reason why I say that, it could be, okay. Just remember that the Septuagint is a Greek translation. It doesn't mean it's fully accurate. It's a translation from the Hebrew. It does give you a translation view of what some of the words might mean back in the Hebrew context. Absolutely. Use it for kind of accessing that aspect, but don't use it as I've seen ADL, Jason do multiple times. I've seen others, like I'm not even going to reference the name because I don't want anything to do with his channel anymore. The dude that thinks he's, the Ellen White expert, don't go to the Septuagint as the point of authority. That's it's a translation, friends. That's what it is. That's it. It's the translation. So don't go to that. But what we look at here in Revelation is do not seal up. Okay. Do not preserve it. Don't authentic. Like preservation. This is more of the hiding it. Let it be released. The message is available. It should be understood. It's been authenticated. So do not seal the book up, the prophetic words of this book, for the time is near. The time is near. Time is near. The presence or absence of the sealing language. When we deal with apocalyptic literature, it functions as a literary device to express a relative time period, a relative, what scholars call temporal distance from the perspective of the author, of whoever the purported author is. So what do I mean by that? Here in Revelation, John is the one receiving this. He's writing it down, right? Don't seal it up. Don't seal up the prophecy. Don't seal up the words of Revelation. Don't keep it. The time is here. It's near. So from John's time on, okay, it's the end of time. This is not just, Revelation is not just designed to provide motivation and value and preservation for the community of John's, like the seven churches itself. That is its immediate context, but it also provides support for us. It provides value for us today because we are also in the end. The time has not come yet. Okay. Now it doesn't mean it's written to us. Okay. But so this language of sealing, I want to eradicate from your mind that the Hebrew or the Greek understanding of sealing is some sort of cryptic, you can't understand it. Like, that's not what it means. Now, this brings us to a very important observation about specifically Daniel's statement, Gabriel's precise language, actually, in Daniel 8:26. And we're getting close to the end, friends. So when we get to Daniel 8:26, I want you to notice that the angel, Gabriel here, doesn't refer generically to the vision. And I actually concur. I agree with Jason when he says that this is referencing the evenings and mornings. Like, I agree. Okay. I disagree with the application of all that, but yes, the vision. Okay. The vision, what vision? It's not any old vision. It's the vision of evenings and mornings, or evening mornings. Okay. I want you to notice down here, the vision. Okay. Ha-hareb. This is a conjunction, okay, which is where we get and. The visions of evenings and the mornings. Okay, ha is the. So the evenings, the mornings, vision. So notice that the phrase here is a direct reference, okay, to evenings and mornings, the vision that was talked about. So the evening, morning, 2300 period that was already explained earlier in the chapter is what Daniel is instructing, Gabriel is instructing Daniel to secure and authenticate and preserve, to seal, to authenticate and preserve. It's specifically this numerical revelation, this 2300 evening mornings, okay, that is the duration that fits in context, that makes sense with regards to the Antiochene persecution. So Gabriel's message essentially here, Gabriel's message is essentially this very specific, I'm going to put the text on the screen so you can know what I'm referring to. This is my literal translation, okay, of what it means. The specific calculation of 2300 evening morning is accurate and it is faithful. It is trustworthy. Yet, it concerns events far removed from your current time, Daniel. So, Daniel, I want you to secure this revelation. I want you to preserve this revelation until the days that will make sense for the people that this is for. That is a contextually accurate apocalyptic application in context, letting the text say what it means. It perfectly describes the mode of apocalyptic literature that emerged actually during the Hellenistic period itself, that prophecy, and hopefully I don't get too many people twitch when I say this, prophecy transmitted under, remember what Jerry Gladson mentioned, pseudonymous or a pseudonymy, a alternate name, almost like when I say pseudonymous, what I mean is like a ghostwriter, okay? Under a pseudonymous Babylonian persona that is addressing contemporary crisis through the literary device of ancient prediction. This is the way it functions. The sealing instruction actually, and when I say sealing, remember, authenticate, preserve, okay? The sealing instruction, it anticipates exactly what we find in the history, in the historical setting. When the Maccabean persecution began and the Jewish readers, again, it was unsealed. They understood what was said prior in these words. They found encouragement. They found motivation. They found a very, like a calming. They knew that ultimately it wasn't going to happen forever, that it would ultimately end. They knew that. It's very specific to the situation. So now, as we close this down, just remember, there's a crucial theological dimension to this, to Gabriel's instruction. And we can't, I don't think we should overlook this. Notice how Gabriel emphasizes the vision of the evening morning was told is true. Let's go to verse 26. Notice that it says, the vision of the evening and mornings that has been told is true, emet. The Hebrew word here carries a really important theological weight. This doesn't just mean it's factual. This carries divine truth. Again, it's part of the authentic nature of the sealing aspect. It's reliable. It's certain. We know that it's certain. The angel, and it, you know what? It also, let me just say this. Gabriel's emphasis really says something about the credibility of what's being said. It absolutely will be true. And I really appreciate the individual that mentioned last live stream about the connection to Gabriel's different kind of episodes. And think about Gabriel's connection to the announcement of Christ. That's true. It comes from a high position. And so it carries this credibility, this authenticity, it's faithful, it's genuine, it can be trusted. You can, in modern language, we would say, you can take it to the bank. It's going to happen. So the angel, I think here, is addressing, I think he's addressing Daniel's anxiety, because he's clearly terrified, okay, about this outcome. He can't imagine that the temple is going to be desecrated. I mean, this is, and friends, if you haven't done much research on the central aspect of the temple to the Jewish culture, man, you need to do some research on that, because here's what you've got to understand about the centrality of the temple to Jewish culture. It was so central. It was so utterly important that a Jew could not be a Jew without the temple. So when you have a vision like this that is going to happen in the future, they're in Babylonian exile, and Daniel's getting this vision from a high appointed authority in heaven, from Gabriel, that we know is authentic and true, claiming that the temple is going to be desecrated, no longer to be able to function. You realize that that is stripping the entire identity. Jews can no longer be Jewish. I want that to sink in. The magnitude of the arrogance of Antiochus Epiphanes and the desecration that he did to the Jewish people, to their primary central worship location for the cultic Israelite community. So he's very clearly addressing, I think, Gabriel's deep anxiety for the future, for what's going to happen. So in context, the sealing function as an act, again, as an act of divine authentication, not an indefinite postponement, not an 1844, not a cryptic sealing. Oh, you won't be able to understand this until like the investigative judgment happens. No, friends, that is some of the most erroneous teachings. It's horrible. I will say it again and again and again. It is egregious to the text. It's egregious. This is not about hiding some sort of truth or some sort of movement from the most holy it's from the holy to the most holy. And now Jesus is secretly moving. Now he's moving in. And friends, that is egregious. It's horrible. It's out of context. Now let me address the specific objections that are raised in this. And then we're going to be done. There's 4 objections I'm going to just quickly address. And the addressing of this is the objections to what I am positing. Okay, this is my understanding. This is my interpretation of it. Friends, you don't have to agree with it. Okay, you most certainly can reject it. I'll say this again. If you're going to engage on the channel, if you're going to engage in Discord, if you're going to engage in the chat, deal with the substance of the arguments. Bring your reasons academically, biblically, linguistically, textually, culturally. Bring them. Okay? Bring them. And I'm just going to, here, just another side note for clarity. I never said the movement was secret. That's not the Adventist position. The Adventist position is that from 457, this 2,300 years, this time period, this 2,300 prophetic years, moved all the way to a time in the multi-millennia distant future, that in 1844, which would actually be a false understanding of Jesus coming, like false by like Ellen White claimed. I'm just going to go off on the Adventist position for a second. Ellen White claimed that the Millerite date that was false twice. The Millerite date of October 22, 1844. Not only was it right for this 2300 thing, but that God put his hand over this date so that they would not understand. So that they would, in fact, it became in the early movement of the Adventist church, if you discredited that false date setting, if you claimed that was erroneous and left, well, you're apostate, because Ellen White claimed that specific test was a way of seeing who really was true or not. So the deceptive nature and the false date setting of William Miller became a test of the true ones that became the Advent movement and then later emerged into the movement that we have today. It's a load of junk, and it's built, and this is why I'm saying it, it's built off of an out of context understanding of Daniel 8, 13, 14, and then, really Daniel 8 itself, but the 2 verses there. And then when we understand Daniel 8, 26 and 7, we understand that there's no way that this can be. So here's the objections that I'm going to handle. Okay. The first objection is going to usually claim that the many days has to refer to eschatological millennia. And this is the Adventist, it has to refer to 1844. Multi-millennia, okay, in the future. But I hope, as you've seen, the examination of the Hebrew usage of the patterns, many days, consistently denotes what I call relative remoteness, a period of time that's relative to the historical context. It does not refer to timeless eschaton. Now, there are time periods, and I'll say this, there are time periods in the text where it does refer to the end of time, the actual end of time. But you understand that by the context. It's very clear in its context, okay? We do not have that in Daniel 8, 26 and 7. We don't have it. The second objection usually argues that the seal up nature in the text, seal up the vision, means that it's hidden for ages, okay? In other words, Daniel wasn't able to understand, or the people that it was written to at the time that it was written, they had no clue what he was talking about. It was sealed up. It was secret information. Okay. And I appreciate you saying that, Sola Scriptura, because what in the Adventist position, it's sealed up, and the only way it was revealed, okay, it was revealed at the appointed time when our false prophetess, Ellen White, showed us this meaning. So you see how for them, it connects into their historical movement. It connects into their understanding. And thank you. I appreciate you mentioning that, Sola Scriptura. Thank you. I know that you've done a lot of work on this as well. So that is, again, I'm going to keep using this word, it is egregiously out of context. Okay. Remember how we analyzed Isaiah 8:16. And the other biblical usages of the sealing language. Remember how that demonstrates that the sealing function primarily, again, in its context, primarily refers to safeguarding and authenticating. It does not mean perpetual concealment. It doesn't take on this keep it secret until the appointed time. It ensures that the message is going to remain intact. It carries the authority of Gabriel until the proper time of when it would make sense. Okay. The third objection usually suggests, we didn't talk a ton about this, but it usually suggests that the 400 years specifically, that implies, it simply isn't long enough to warrant this description of many days. There's no way. Now, this Adventist objection, actually in the full video, Jason brings this up, but this Adventist position fails miserably when you consider biblical rhetoric and perspective. Even a single generation in the biblical text, a single generation, which would be 50, 60, 70 years, 42, it depends on how far you go back, but a single generation, a time period of one human, a single generation can represent delayed fulfillment. Now, for proof of this, okay, you cannot take the argument that 400 years, it just isn't enough time, Mike. Well, look at this delayed fulfillment from a prophetic standpoint. 2 Kings 20, verse 17, days are coming when all that is in your house and that which your ancestors have stored up until this day shall be buried to Babylon. Nothing shall be left, says the Lord. What is this in reference to historically? It's the generation. It actually came true. It's not like 800 years later. It's not 2,300 years later. It's not 4,000 years. This is a single generation. It's delayed judgment. The time has come. It'll happen in this generation. So this concept of, oh, it's not enough time, it's a straw man. It doesn't fit the context. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't follow the rhetoric of judgment. It doesn't follow the rhetoric of apocalyptic literature. So 400 centuries, or 4 centuries rather, 400 years can represent an unimaginable distance of period. I mean, think about it now, friends. If you knew that 350 to 400 years from now, something would happen to your country or your region of your continent, you know, let's just put it in the United States perspective. Let's say a prophet said, you know, that 400 years from now, the Pentagon is going to be sacked and completely destroyed, or whatever the important government, you know, position or government building is for where you're at. I mean, that would be an unbearable amount of time. Okay. So it absolutely is okay to say that this fits the many days for sure. Okay. It's a lot of many days. Now, the final objection, this is the fourth objection, tends to insist that, you know, if Daniel's prophecies were fulfilled in the Antiochene period, there must really, they have to concern the Roman era, or later maintain their prophetic character, for example. Okay, and this is a connection to the Adventist position of Rome and the papacy and like the way in which it gets interpreted. But here's what I need you to understand with this objection. This particular objection completely misunderstands the nature and the function of apocalyptic literature. And my encouragement here is, if you have not read other apocalyptic literature, okay, the apocalypse of Abraham, or the animal apocalypse, there's that one. Enoch is an apocalyptic document. You don't have to agree. You don't have to accept. You don't have to even use any of that literature for understanding per se, except that you need to understand the literature of apocalypse. Like you got to understand that type of literature. Read those types of things. There's dozens of small apocalypse. In fact, Isaiah even has a small apocalypse. Read it. Understand the way it's classified, the way it's written. Okay. Now, here's what I want you to understand with this kind of genre. The chronological gap between the purported Babylonian setting, okay, remember at the beginning of the setting that we talked about with Babylon, the exile, and the actual Hellenistic fulfillment, those two time periods, it fits perfectly with established patterns of Jewish apocalyptic writing during the Second Temple period. If you don't agree or don't think so, go read Second Temple writings that are apocalyptic. Go read them. This happened all the time. This is the way it got described. Events got described in this manner. So this suggested interpretation that I'm providing here, that I'm suggesting, there's a lot of strong corroboration. I mean, this is not a minority view, friends. This is not Mike Colburn's new fantastical concept or perspective. In fact, what I'm sharing with you is actually the predominant academic understanding. It's understood as maybe critical scholarship, but it is the majority of scholarship will take this position. Now, majority doesn't mean it's right. Don't misunderstand me, okay? But just understand that this is not Mike Colburn making something up, okay? And I'll say this as an added aside. If you want information on this, if you want academic articles, if you want books, if you want resources to read for yourself to come to your own conclusions, if you want that, please scan the code, join the Discord server. It's not like Facebook. It's not like all the other social media stuff, okay? It is a community. It's a community that continues to provide support and value to fellow Christian brothers and sisters. Tyler, thank you so much. Happy Hanukkah. What a great time period. Isn't it amazing that that this all came together in the way that it did? So thank you, Tyler. I appreciate your support a ton. I really do. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And your support here and your friendship, because I know that we have studied before as well. So I really do appreciate that. Happy Hanukkah, which, believe it or not, is really what we're talking about. That is the ultimate celebration that gets tied to this. So again, thank you, Tyler, for your support. It is greatly appreciated. Now, I want you to notice what immediately follows. Okay. Daniel is told, I want to go to just as we finish up. Okay. As we finish up. You know what, Tyler? I think other people need to know. Okay. As we go through this. As we finish up here, when you're in Daniel 12, where we find this parallel structure language, okay, in verse 9, if we go to verse 9, I'm going to take this off. If we go to verse 9, here we go. And we see in verse 9 specifically, the words, okay, he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are to remain secret and sealed until the time of the end. Now, don't get confused by the English, please, friends, okay? This is the same STM, okay? Let me just go back to Daniel 12, verse, hang on. Daniel, where were we at? Hang on. Let me go back here. Let me go back. This Daniel 8:26, okay? I want you to see this because this is the way Hebrew works, okay? Notice STM. That is the lemma or the lexical transliteration, okay? That's not the literal, that's the English letters that are representative of the lexical, which is the dictionary reference word, okay? It's not necessarily the manuscript word, because if you go up to the top, you'll notice these little pointing items. Those were added indicators by the scribes to help future scribes understand what vowels to place and how to say them in between the actual letters, the consonants here. So I want you to see that this seal, okay, STM, is in a similar lexical domain for when we move to Daniel 12, verse 9. Okay, notice sealed right here. Okay, it's STM. Now, I understand these words, English, are very different. I understand that, friends, but you've got to get into the original language. You don't have to become a Hebrew expert. You can rely on Hebrew scholars. That's okay. But you've got to get into the original language when you're dealing with this kind of complex manuscript. This is from the same stem or the same semantic domain. Okay, so it carries a similar, in context, we got to understand it carries a similar reference point. So notice the immediate following words. It specifically notates, okay, it references the 1,290 and it references, let me put it back on the screen, large, okay? So while we have this sealing, okay, till the end of time, notice what it says very specifically. It tells you the numerical time period. It tells you, it references 1,290. It references 1,135 days in verse 11 and 12. And so these specific references, while someone could say, oh, it's sealed to the end of time. No, the sealing, even if you take it as a completely sealed up part of the nature of sealing, or remains secret as it gets translated, the time is told. It's not for an indefinite period of time. The same sealing instruction deals with chapter 8. It's an Antiochene persecution, the temple desecration. It frames the prophecy in its context, where the days clearly terminate. We've talked about this in previous episodes. A final termination in the 2nd century. The logical conclusion, when you understand this perspective, it is inescapable. I told you all I was going to school ADL. This is one of those episodes, friends. It is not, we're not letting ADL get away with this junk. The way they interpret, the way they move between King James Bible and the Strong's Concordance, it is archaic. You have got to get into the original language. You've got to honor the text for what it actually is. These conclusions are inescapable. Sealed until the end does not mean that it's preserved for an unknown eschaton thousands of years in the future, specifically to a false date setting for the second coming of October 22, 1844. That's horrible, friends. And I'm going to be really bold about this. If you're taking biblical interpretive advice from a group that is this egregious to the text, you need to do some prayer. You need to do some consulting. You need to find a different group. This is horribly egregious to the text. If we read Daniel 12, 9 through 12, in its context, he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are to remain secret and sealed until the time of the end. Many shall be purified, cleansed, and refined, but the wicked shall continue to act wickedly. None of the wicked shall understand, but those who are wise shall understand. From the time of the regular burnt offering is taken away, that's a direct reference to what was going on in Daniel 8. From the time that it was taken away until the desolation sacrilege, that's the same reference that we had in Daniel 8 as well, is set up. From that time period, it shall be how long? 1,290 days. Happy are those who preserve and attain the 1,200, the 1,300. It's so funny the way that it phrases that, but it understands the language. 35 days. But you go your way and rest. You shall rise for your reward at the end of the days. This is, if you understand the literary and theological function of the sealing, it helps to understand the sophisticated way Daniel's text operates. This is rhetoric. The rhetorical purpose of sealing, it transforms a frightening vision, a very complex, scary vision that causes Daniel to faint, into a preserved text with authority, prepared for a later time of suffering, that is going to give motivation and encouragement to the Maccabean persecution that will arrive. And so these previously sealed words, these authentic from the high position of Gabriel, these sealed authentic words were understood. They were understood by the righteous. Do you understand that, friends? Some of you caught that. The wicked will not get it. They will persecute. They will do things. They will cause things. But the wise, but the wicked shall continue to act wickedly. None of the wicked shall understand, but those who are wise shall understand. It was encouraging to them. When this Maccabean revolt or persecution arrived, they knew that crucial inspiration for resistance, for faithfulness. One might even conclude that this potentially helped the Maccabean brothers to actually revolt. Think about that. Within Daniel's theological framework, God's revelation comes in advance. It remains sealed until needed. It has authority and then becomes practically useful at a very precise time in a historical moment for the Jewish people. This honors the text, friends. And let me just summarize, because I know that we've gone for almost 2 hours, and I'm grateful for those of you that are here. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Let me summarize the evidence-based conclusions that I believe are being presented here. We've reached this analysis, and Gabriel's instruction to seal the vision, it should be understood as a command to preserve the revelation that's intact until the Greek and Antiochene crisis arrives. It's supported by parallel passages like Isaiah 8:16, Daniel 12:4. The phrase many days clearly refers to 4 centuries that separates this time period between the Babylonian time period, the Hellenistic period. It keeps in context the Hebrew idioms. It honors the proportionate distance that's calculated in the actual numerical items in the text. The specific reference to the visions of the evening and mornings, it links very directly back to the 2300 unit period of desecration that is described earlier in the text. It's there, friends. Don't twist the text to say what it doesn't say. It points to an unmistakably clear historical fulfillment in the 2nd century under the crisis of Antiochus IV Epiphanes. To me, the implications are clear. I mean, once you see it, after the blinders are taken off from once you've been cleansed of whitewashing in the Adventist church, because friends, let me just say this, there is no other church, there is no other denomination that holds the Adventist understanding of the 2300. There's absolutely zero. All the way through the investigative judgment. When I say that, understand, I'm saying the investigative judgment, 2300 days, 457 to 1844, transition from one place to another in the temple, like all that stuff. There's absolutely no other denomination that holds this position. So when I say you need to be cleansed, you need to be whitewashed away, the lens needs to be cleansed or cleared up so that you can actually see and not be blinded. Friends, I hope this has been helpful. I hope that it's been valuable. I appreciate the time this evening. I would absolutely love to have you join the Discord channel. And I want to encourage you with this, okay? The richness of the Hebrew scripture, how beautiful the language is. It rewards careful study. It rewards those that really dig in and ruminate on the text and ask good questions and interact with the difficulties in your current understanding. Every verse, which is divinely inspired by God, every verse offers new insights that when you approach it with the correct and appropriate linguistic, literary, historical tools, and you may not have those, I ask you to join the Discord channel. You will learn some of those. I ask you to go to some of there are professors I'll point you in directions to. There are free classes that you can go to learn how to use these tools, to understand the text in its context. I encourage you to share your thoughts. Share it I know many of you have in the live stream. Share it in the after the fact comments. Join the Discord channel. Share it in the Discord channel where you'll get lots of opportunity to engage. Don't hesitate to suggest other challenging interpretive issues that you'd like addressed in similar videos. We're going to continue with this. We're only halfway through the Antiochene rebuttal. But please share your thoughts, okay? We always address them with rigorous biblical scholarship. And until next time, happy Hanukkah. Enjoy the holidays. I will see you again soon. But until next time, may you study the scriptures deeply. Continue to look at the beauty of the original language. May it deepen your appreciation for both its human authors and its divine authors. God bless and have a beautiful night.